Folks, it's that time. Welcome to Dow's Weekly Digest. So how you doing and how's yours doing? I hope everything's fine with everybody. You know, when I started in this industry, I could work with associates and they'd say, you know, Dow, at times you remind me of my son. Or they'd say, Dow, you kind of remind me of my brother. Okay. Well, as time went on and so forth, then they would say, you know, Dow, you kind of remind me of my uncle or my dad. Well, this last week it happened, folks. Dow, you remind me of my grandpa. You remind me of my grandpa. And it just came out, you know, so plated everything. And I just, yep, that's probably right, folks. Remind them of their grandpa. So it was quite a week. Well, I saw my local deer again. They're getting bigger. And it's funny how in this old memory, different things will hit me. And say, oh, yeah, I kind of understand now. And one was our good old Pastor Bill. At one Bible study, he kind of clarified on what he thought was meant in the Bible verse that says, be steadfast like a deer's feet, and you can stand upon mountains if you have faith. And what he shared was that when a white-tailed deer will walk or even run, that where the front hoof will go, that hind hoof will go in the very same spot. So the deer has to what? Just look and where its front hoofs are going to be, knowing that the rear hoofs will go there. And in my biking last couple days, I've noticed, because I'll kind of come up on them and they'll move it. Sure enough, it will go right in the very same spot. Isn't that something just from old Pastor Bill? Well, the theme for this week I like to choose is the good old days and the precious gift. But before we get to that, folks, guess what? Let's go to some Cowboy Wisdom. Only a fool would argue with a skunk, a mule, or the cook. Only a fool would argue with those three. Last night I tried my hand on some cooking. LaDonna, my wife, in the past we would always go to a place called Stephenson's Farm, and they had the most delicious fried chicken, and they cooked it with kind of like a cream sauce. So you needed to cook it in two phases. Well, I was trying this last night, and I was going to do the second phase on the grill. Well, folks, I took too long in phase one, because you could argue with this cook, because last night that chicken came out, it was petrified. It was harder than, man, you could break your teeth on that. So I'd say, well, you know, I have to go back to the table on that one there. But don't argue with the cook. You know, you might be a Lutheran if you've gone to a movie, a Star Wars movie, and you're there in the theater, and all of a sudden a big screen, the Dolby sound system, it says, may the force be with you. And you say under your breath before you hear it, and then you hear some others saying, and also with you. Because us Lutherans, we like to what? Share the peace, and when we do, pastor says, you know, peace be with you, and we turn right around and say to the pastor, also with you. It becomes an automatic. So you might be a Lutheran there. How about that South Dakota trivia? Well, we all probably know of a ship, the Titanic. You know, the Titanic had a couple passengers from South Dakota. The one was Ole Thorensen. Ole Thorensen was from Aberdeen, South Dakota, and he was a beer salesman. And the other was Mrs. Hewlett, and she was from Rapid City, South Dakota, right here. Great, neither one of them made it. You know, folks, it's been said that the Titanic was built by professionals. Unsinkable, right? And Noah's Ark was built by an amateur. An amateur. Let's see what the Bible says about that precious present. Live in the present. Matthew 6:34 says this, therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Another is Ephesians 5, verse 15. Look carefully how you walk, not as unwise, but walk as the wise, making the best use of the time. So there's a couple of things it says about what living in the present that the Bible says. As I was growing up, I had the opportunity to stay with my grandparents for a while. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is my grandparents' home. It was literally the term you heard of tar paper. The outside of that house was made with tar paper. But maybe you could see a little bit from the picture. There were some beautiful trees around there. One was a great big old, and he called it a box elder tree. But on days like this, it would be really hot in the house. So we'd stay out as long as we could before we'd go in. And we'd sit under the trees, and we'd hear stories. And actually people would come as they would get well water, and they'd share stories or different things. Grandpa shared, with an ear of corn. And if you'd count the rows, they're always even. And you're not going to find one that's odd. Believe me, I've looked at a lot of ears of corn. I haven't found one yet that's an odd row. Another one that he shared was, you always get on the left side of a horse. In times past, years past, the soldier had a sword. He was usually right-handed, and so it was on his left side. And so you mounted a horse on the left. Okay, that makes sense, Grandpa. Okay, I understand that. A little bit of a wisdom that is shared under the shade tree. Well, guess what, folks? The good old days are not always in the past. I'd like to share with you a little bit of some lyrics from an artist, a young lady. Her name is Keisha. I wish somebody would have told me then that someday these will be the good old days. I'm telling you right now, folks, that today these can be the good old days. That's going to depend upon us. As old Zig Ziglar would say, an attitude, right? Get a checkup from the neck up. I'd like to share with you with a good old carrier. That's part of the premier carriers here with financial markets. That's John Hancock, 158 years old, folks. 158 years old. But they're not resting on the past. Not at all. They're making the present the good old days. Last week, I had the opportunity to hear my webinar of a senior vice president, Linda Levine. And she was from John Hancock, and she shared some things of looking at the present and even looking down the road for the balance of the year and years to come. What are the client's pain points? The motivators. If you think about it this evening or tomorrow on that. We're hearing about two M words a lot. Mortality and morbidity. And we're getting saturated by it every single day. Back in the recesses of our mind, that can be a pain point for all of us. Again, panoramic view, John Hancock helps us from submission to commission, and different resources and tools on that journey. Linda made a specific observation in the world of all of a sudden the inundation from carriers of the e-application. She still brought forth at the front lines the case manager and the case managers that we have at financial markets. They are looking at things, and we're in this learning curve of e-applications, and more than ever is the key being the case manager. Our case manager. Our case manager follows that case, folks, from the time that you send it to us, and they'll follow it all the way through. It's not handed down to others. They have other resources that help them, but that case manager that's going to be communicating to you, they are right there. They are right there. So you want to really look at how your case manager is helping you all the step of the way there. And you can call them direct. They're there to answer the phone. You can email them. That's what they're there. But I found that so interesting that here I've got a senior vice president, But she made the point that, hey, we may think we're totally this electronic thing, but boy, at the front lines is the case manager. So let's look at a couple things on how we go from submission to commission with John Hancock, good old carrier. As I bring these up, be sure to, one that maybe hits you a little bit, and be sure to contact again that internal wholesaler, and they'll get more information to you. A business builder kit. They have then taken the technology of all different resources, whether that be social media, whether that be email, whether that be print itself. They've comprised that into one particular kit called this Business Builder Kit. Is it just for business insurance? No. When they're saying business, they're meaning your business, whether that be business insurance, individual insurance, retirement plans. But it is kind of put in a concise arena here and in different categories, where then in turn our internal wholesalers, you could say, maybe this is on my bucket list. Let me look at these different categories. And then from that, the internal wholesaler can then give different options to look at there. So when I say Business Builder Kit, it's your business. You're the client that they're saying, how do you want to customize it? We have a lot of different options here that you can customize it to. On casualty insurance, you hear the phrase, you get a good driver discount. I think technology-wise, they even have things that you could put in the car to help electronically substantiate that you'll get a discount. Can that be done on the life insurance side? John Hancock kind of thinks so. They have a plan called a Vitality Plan. And with the Vitality Plan, it'll go through its experienced and normal underwriting, but it'll also look at granting a good insured discount. Not only today, but tomorrow. If you will hit certain parameters and show that you are this good insured, they're going to pass on a discount to you. So it's kind of like a good driver discount, but it's a good insured discount. A Vitality Plan. That's the plan you want to ask our internal wholesaler about. As I said, John Hancock then takes kind of this individual approach. Years and years back, there was one insurance company that used a phrase, and I like that phrase, folks. They call it clinical underwriting. They started at a base, kind of like other insurance companies, but then they tried to individualize it by looking at how compliant is the person, how are they doing in their general health, all those different parameters. And if it's good, they pass that on as being good credits to you. And again, that's kind of what the Vitality Plan does. So their experience upon the Vitality Plan, then, again, not relying on the good old days, but looking at the present, they then went to the next step and they looked at a diabetic. In one resource I looked at, they figure of recorded diabetics that 10.5% of our population is diabetic. This was the 2018 figures, folks. Well, as I said, John Hancock then, in their experience, then looked at that population. They firmly believe that by looking at this particular group of individuals with this particular health impairment, that they're going to gain the experience to be able to, as I say, take the low-hanging fruit and pass on the benefits to them of getting very, very competitive premium rates for their life insurance needs. It would be a little bit like this, folks. You've maybe seen this in different little icebreakers and everything, where you start at number 1 and then you try to find number 2 and you go to 3 and you go to 4. And you have maybe a time limit, and then they'll stop. And then maybe they'll say, okay, now we're going to do it again. And they'll get the very same sheet and they'll ask you to do it again. And you're able to what? Do it a lot faster the second time. You get to a higher number. Well, John Hancock, looking at that audience of diabetics, they're getting more underwriting experience all the time. They're not going to put a diabetic right away into what I call a pigeonhole underwriting, saying, oh, your A1C is this. You're on these many insulin. So then you are on table 6 right away. They're saying, no, let's look at what that individual person's history is like. Because you know what? As they see different good credits, good factors, over the years they've done that, and they're up to the high numbers. They're up to the law of large numbers. They are willing to put their energies in looking at this 10.5% population. And you think the population group's going to go lower or higher? I think it's going to be higher, folks. You know, there's an American Diabetic Association in every single state. I think they would be interested in you sharing information on that particular population group that they serve. You know what? John Hancock has resources to help with that very thing. One source might be the Business Builder Kit has some things. They call that the Aspire. So ask our internal wholesaler, tell me about this Inspire program and how it then is laser focusing on the diabetics. Also, Linda, that senior vice president, shared that there seemed to be some kind of closing of the parameters as we got into more applications, and insurance companies weren't taking some older people. Folks, they'll go up to age 90 and try to underwrite them, do the underwriting, and make an offer to those people. Now, they pointed out if they're over age 80 plus, if they're higher than what we would call a standard rate, they're not going to make an offer. But they will still, if they are standard rate, they will make an offer. So if you have a client, and there's a lot of them, folks, my own mother-in-law, she's 91 years old, lives by herself, drives a car. Man, Laverne does a lot of things. She's in good health. If she was 85, like she was in the past, good old days, she could applied, and she would be a standard or better with them, and they would be making an offer. So my point is, you may have some older clientele that are healthy clienteles, like my mother-in-law Laverne. Contact an internal wholesaler. We still have a carrier that's willing to underwrite them. So as I say, particularly with that diabetic at the Aspire, we can get a very good rate. And folks, it's not an oxymoron to say, are they a healthy diabetic? Are they a healthy diabetic? How's this for a tool? We just, this month, everyone, was the final date for our taxes. They have a wonderful resource, folks, of using the 1040 form to then look at those pain points. One, the taxes itself might be a pain point, but they have other areas on that 1040 form itself as kind of a springboard to talk about these different items there. Ask my internal wholesaler about that 1040 form on looking at life insurance, long-term care needs. It's pretty good. The theme was the good old days and the precious present. So what have I got for recommendations? Movie, 1986. It was done by Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner did a movie based on a novella, a small little novel, done by an author you may know of, Stephen King. And the name of that movie was Stand By Me. Stand By Me. Good old days, boys being boys. It's a good old movie. My song comes from a mother and daughter. They sang a song, is entitled Grandpa, Tell Me About the Good Old Days. Yeah, that's a good old song. Grandpa, tell me about the good old days. And the poem is, the author is Pat Adams, and the actual name of that poem is Good Old Days. Good Old Days. And how about the book? Okay, the book, the author is Dr. Spencer Johnson. Now, this is not the book. At times I had a library, not as big as it is because I've given some books out, and guess what? I don't get them back. Okay. This happens to be one of them. But Dr. Spencer Johnson, the author who also wrote this, Who Moved My Cheese? The title of this book is The Precious Present. Now, as years went by, then Doctor saw fit that he named the book The Present. So the same story is in really 2 books. And the book that I had was called The Precious Present. But it talks about how a older gentleman, he hires a young man to mow his lawn. And when he hires that young man, he notices that that young man seems to be smiling and happy the whole time period that he's mowing that lawn. And he shares the knowledge that this young man already seems to grasp of being in the present. And it does it in a very, very nice way, and you could even share that with your children and your grandchildren, that the precious present. My power phrase to share with you comes from a good old boy, Mr. Ben Feldman. And he says this: the key to a sale is the interview, and the key to the interview is a disturbing question. So the key to the sale is I need the interview. And once I get the interview, the key to the interview is what? I'm listening, and I'm going to have a good, disturbing question. So that comes from Mr. Ben Feldman. The video I have to share with you today comes from John Hancock, and they're showcasing a couple, and they are going to be discussing the different pain points. And their one pain point that they bring up is saving. So I think you'll kind of enjoy it.
Gordon loves computers. He's got parts all over the house.
I'm a problem solver. I look into a problem and find out what caused it to happen and how to reverse it. 5 years ago, what I discovered was I had diabetes. My determination was to figure out how to control this, how to make it better.
When we found out that Gordon is diabetic, I wanted to make sure that we were covered in terms of life insurance. What if things get worse?
The life insurance is not for me. Life insurance for the people I love, I care for, who get left behind.
I think I was worried that Gordon might not qualify because of the diabetes, but when we looked into life insurance, Vitality is an option that we could do.
Vitality, once I get into it, I discovered, wow, this program is pretty good. What they're doing is they're encouraging their participant to get better health by providing you with some knowledge, what kind of food to eat, what kind of exercise you do. I use Fitbit. My wife used the Apple Watch. My aim was 15,000 steps on a daily basis. I am a IT manager in a small equity firm. At work, I just walk the stairs at the garage and meet my goal.
All the other things that comes with it is great because there's little rewards along the way. We go to Starbucks, so we once in a while we'll get a Starbucks gift card. But we're kind of competitive in that we always push each other. Did you get your go yet?
I wasn't competing. I just want to get mine done, get it over with, move on.
Yes, you do compete.
When I walk up the hill in the beginning, it was huff and puff. But over time, it get easier and easier. And to a point that, oh, you're comfortable. And I didn't think I could do that. But it happened, so you go, it's positive. That's an improvement. Now I'm actually pre-diabetic, so I'm no longer in diabetes category.
The nice thing about Vitality is just doing things that we do every day, trying to live a healthier life, eat a little healthier, get a little bit of exercise in. You can set goals on what you would like to do, but I think what I like the most is probably the reducing premium. Vitality is good for him because of the diabetes. It's good for him to be active.
If you live longer, you stay with your loved ones longer. You live longer, you live happier. So the whole thing, it benefits everybody.
Well, didn't they cover a little bit some different options there? And also, particularly, I like the phrase that they used, what? Real life has no filter. As we learn from the past, we look forward down the future and enjoy the precious present. We come to understand what? The real life has no filter. It has no filter at all. And know this. GP for you, folks. G. And blessed are those who ease the pain points of misfortune, for they shall be called insurance agents. You go out there and have a good week. Take care.